Welcome back to another episode of Grow the Earth. I'm Tommy, and we're out here in the garden today, and we're going to discuss green beans. Now, green beans are kind of a particular thing to grow. They have certain requirements, and there's a certain way we harvest them to keep them growing and producing effectively. Because, of course, with all vegetables, we want the most production we can get out of our vegetables in our garden, especially if you're like me and you have a smaller garden space. We want to plant something and we want to be able to harvest off of it multiple times. Well, we're going to start from the beginning, and we're going to talk about planting green beans. Now, these are a bush green bean, which means that they will grow, and they're not a vine. They grow like a bush, just like a pepper plant or a jalapeno or anything like that. They do tend to fall over fairly easily. We don't have them supported here, but you can use a support system for them. But the bean itself, when you go to plant it, for best practice, for best germination, you want to have warm days, and you also want to make sure that you are soaking those seeds 24 hours before you plant them. And that's pretty much it. Those are pretty much the special requirements. You want to soak your seeds, and you need to have warm soil. Other than that, another thing that we need to do with green beans, they produce almost like a determinate tomato, meaning they grow to a certain point and then they put on flowers and they produce the green beans, of course. But if those green beans go to full size, the plant will stop producing. And this is because the green beans themselves, their only purpose is to reproduce. So when they've grown a full batch of green beans to full size, then they don't need to continue to growing and putting on fruit and expelling all this energy, because in their existence they have reproduced. So what we have to do is we have to constantly pick. Now, we have roughly a dozen plants here, and we pick off of these daily. And that's about the only way that we can keep on top of them to keep the green beans from getting too large. Because, you know, with most vegetables, we are eating fruit that is not fully ripened yet. Most fruit, when it is ripe enough to gain seed from, is past the point of being edible for us, or past the point that we like it as far as taste and texture and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you in here close, and I'm going to show you the flowers. I'm going to explain to you how they fertilize, how they're going to grow a green bean, and at what point you should be looking to pick a green bean. Alright guys, so I've brought you in really close so that you can see this is the flowers that green beans put on. Now, these flowers are self-pollinating, and the flower itself contains both the male and the female counterparts. So you don't necessarily need bees or anything else to pollinate these, but you do need some sort of a wind or manual manipulation by a human or whatnot to facilitate fertilization, because these are much like a tomato plant. Both the male and the female are contained inside of that flower. Now, from this stage, once it pollinates, you're going to end up with this little guy right here. Now, that doesn't look like much, but that is a green bean. And of course, from that point, it'll just continue to grow. So here's a little next larger stage there. There's another one that's a little bit larger than that. And then you have these here. And then right next to it, you've got this guy here, which is pretty much fully grown. This is about, let me zoom out here a little bit. This is about the size that we want to pick. And the reason that is because any larger than this, the plant could possibly think that they are through fruiting, that they have reproduced and they will stop producing. So we definitely want to catch our green beans before they get to that point, because, you know, we want all of our green beans to continue to produce and provide us food. So the other thing that we have done, and that is actually a good practice for especially green beans, is the ones on that end are actually older. We planted those about a week or so before we planted these guys here, because they do very well with succession planting. The further ones are going to be produced, are going to grow up and start producing, while these here are starting to grow and not quite producing yet. The reason we do this is because a green bean plant, as it gets older, it will put on fewer and fewer fruit, just like a bell pepper would. So in order to keep up our production, when those start slowing down, then that means these guys here are going to kick into gear. And we'll continue to harvest off of the older ones, but they're not going to be producing as much. And these guys here are going to take up for that. So in another week or two, we'll probably plant some more behind me here. That way we'll continue to have production after production after production, and we don't have to worry about lapses in between, or once the green beans are done, then we've got to plant more and we have to wait for those to grow and produce. Now these green beans here, the ones you're looking at here, were planted in March, like mid-March. So here in 9A, you can see these are only 2 months, and we've been picking off of these for probably a month already. So they're a very fast, very vigorous plant. So we want to make sure that we give them plenty of nitrogen, plenty of, you know, any minerals that they need, because they do grow vigorously, and they do require a lot from the soil to be as vigorous as they are. Alright guys, so that's green beans. You know, they're actually a fairly easy plant to grow. They do very well, and if you like green beans and you've only had them out of a can or from the store, these are going to knock your socks off. It's an entirely different experience to eat a green bean that came out of your garden, from taste, from texture, and from so many other factors. So guys, as always, I want to encourage you to pray over your garden, pray over your family, and have a great day.